Welcome to the Movie Cheer podcast. I am your host, AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and welcome back to another episode. And today's topic of discussion is best Pixar movies of the 2000s. That's right, of the 2000s. That means from 2000 to 2009, I'm going to pick out 4 Pixar movies. I'm a big Pixar fan. I like animated movies in general, but I think Pixar are probably like the top tier for me personally. They're like my favourite ones out of animated movies in general. So it's going to be a fun episode, deep diving into 4 of those movies of the 2000s. I can't wait to look into that topic. But before we get into the main headline topic of today's show, we're going to start the show like we normally do with some not-so-worthy blockbuster housekeeping. That is right, ladies and gents. This is the part of the show where we ease into things, discuss what's going on with the channel, and just have a general chit-chat about things, all related to the Movie Cheer community and Movie Cheer town. So, what's going on this week? Not-so-worthy blockbuster housekeeping. So we had a new video on the window. I was going to say on the window. We didn't have channels videos on the windows. That'd be weird. New video on the channel this week, this Thursday, and it was starting a movie collection in 2022. Look, this video had some great feedback, a good amount of views, a lot of people in the community getting involved and talking and discussing, giving their thoughts on this topic. This is one where I want to do a few of these videos this year where we go into like best DVD player, or these sort of videos. Is it worth collecting DVDs in 2022? I like these sort of videos because it's a good I think they're good like topics to draw lots of views and opinions in. I love that. That's what I love about this community. So I did that video this week and give my views on that because it was just I went to buy some DVDs this week and it just sort of spawned the idea, like what if I was starting a new collection, and just really get into thinking about what my rules are for starting movie collections. And look, I'm not like a heavy collector. It may appear behind me that this is tons of DVDs, but in reality, it's not that many. I'm very lucky to have these DVDs, but it's not like a library full of DVDs. I think it's a fairly small amount of a collection, but it's a collection I really, really care about. Well, not care about. I value it. I get a lot of joy out of this collection behind me, and a lot of fun. But I was picking up some new DVDs, adding them to the collection. I was thinking, how do I do it? My mindset of like collecting is it, and I do have like rules, and I mentioned it in the video of having certain rules to bringing in new DVDs or new movies in general, and just rules. Even if you're like a movie collector, you're a few years into having a movie collection. I think just having little rules and little tips along the way for doing your own collecting, I think it's a good idea, and it's cool to hear what other people think and what other people do with their collections, how they go about adding new movies into the collections. I'd recommend get into the community, get into the comments section of that video, and get involved in the discussions out there. Talk to people, get involved, ladies and gents. But that was a really fun video to do, so thank you very much for everyone who's interacted with that video and viewed that video so far. If you've not checked it out, definitely give it a watch. Look, I've talked about I was picking up some movies this week. This one movie I do want to discuss is here, this. Bit of a different thing on the not-so-worthy blockbuster housekeeping, but I picked up this movie this past week, and it's got to be in 90s, and it's 98, it's saying here. DreamWorks movie, Paulie. I picked this up this week, and I gotta say, this is so cool of a movie. I remember watching it as a kid. So many happy memories of watching this movie on VHS. And it was one where when we purged the VHS collection when I was a kid, never got it again. And as an adult now, I've managed to get a copy. And it's not that I probably could have purchased it on like eBay or Amazon over the years, but it's kind of a movie that just dropped out of my memory. And I'm sure, let me know what movies did you watch as a kid and you kind of just forgot about, and then at a certain point in life you remember this movie and you're like, I want to watch this movie again. This was one where I just seen it, I was like, oh wow, I remember that movie, Paulie, and it's about a parrot who is like he's he's born this parrot, and he's given to this little girl who has this is not really spoiling the movie. I didn't watch it all. I've only watched a bit more of it so far because I something come up and I couldn't watch the whole movie, but I had forgot everything about it. The little girl, she has like a speech impediment. She suffers with like she has like a stutter, and the bird, is able to talk, and she is the only one who believes that the bird can talk, and the dad and stuff thinks like she's going crazy and stuff like that, and he gets rid of the bird, and then there's this story of the bird Paulie's life, and he wants to find this little girl called Marie again, and it's just a really heartwarming story, and I think it's a really nice story to watch, and it's a really good film, and if you've never watched Paulie, check it out. I can't wait to give this a full watch at some point this week. Looking forward to it, but it was just great to find this movie again and just bring back some of them memories and childhood memories, and it's just great just to have it in the collection now, so I'm really happy I've got hold of this. What else has been going on? I've got a runny nose. What else has been going on with the channel this past week? So, on the Patreon, let's flip over to Patreon there quickly. So we do Patreon content, bonus content as well if you want any extra content from the channel. This week, or today most likely, I'm going to be recording Do or Do Not. Do or Do Not. There is no try. Yoda. I'm going to be recording some new audio bonus pods. Kind of like bonus pods, or I don't know if you could class it as a podcast, but we do the bonus podcast on the Patreon, and I'm going to be doing some commentary tracks, or I'm going to be attempting some commentary tracks. Now, I was thinking originally, should I do like a movie? Do a whole movie, and then I discuss it at first, and then put the movie on. You watch along with me if you want to, or you want to just listen to it as a podcast, and just give my commentary. But I thought a movie, I don't think I can talk for like 2 hours non-stop. I think I will just run out of things to say. My limit is, like I said, 45 minutes. That is me done and dusted. After that, I'm asleep. My brain's gone. But I'm looking to do. I've got a bunch of TV episodes, old American TV comedies, like sitcoms, to do, and I'm going to do a few of them, trial them out, see what you like on Patreon. If people like it, I'll do more of them, but I'm looking forward to just trying something else, putting a new coat of paint to the Patreon, just adding a little bit more content. And this rolls into the changes to the Patreon starting as of next month. We are going to have a few little changes to Patreon next month, and we are going to be doing, rather than webcomic Mondays every Monday, it's going to be a bit of change where we get regular content every Monday still, but it'll be a mix of bonus videos, bonus podcast, webcomics, the audio commentaries as well, just to mix things up. So really it's going to be a guessing game to what comes out until we get that regular rhythm, but it's always going to be bonus content on Mondays on Patreon. I will do an announcement on the Patreon page as well. You can join up to Patreon if you want that extra content. Don't feel obliged to, but if you want a bit more content, it's $1 to sign up for it a month. There's tons of podcasts on there. There's bonus videos as well if you just want that extra bit of movie cheer content. But anyway, that is it for the not so worthy blockbuster housekeeping this week. Let's move on to the headline topic of today's show. So today's headline topic, best Pixar movies of the 2000s, a decade of the 2000s. Let's just talk about the 2000s in general. What are my thoughts on the 2000s? Really, not really an era of really brilliant music and probably bad genes. That's my interpretation, my view of the era. But movies-wise, we had some great movies coming out in the 2000s, in my opinion. And Pixar had some fantastic ones, some fantastic films. This was hard to pick out four, really. But these four choices are my favourite. They're in no particular order, these movies. So let's get into it. And I will say, Pixar for me, favourite Pixar movies has got to be the Toy Story movies. They are my favourites. I was shocked because the first two Toy Story movies, I think one's in like 95 and the other one's in like 98, Toy Story 2. I thought for sure there was one in the 2000 era, but it escaped it. So, like I said, it's going to be 2000 to 2009. The Toy Story 3 movie was 2010, so nothing was released in the 2000s era. It was the 2010s. Really surprised by it. I thought Toy Story 2 would have been like 2001. I would, if that come up in like a quiz show and I was on a quiz show like The Chase, I would have been like 2001 for sure. But yeah, I was surprised by that. But let's get into it. Let's get into the headline topic, ladies and gents. So I'm going to start off today with my first pick of best Pixar movie of the 2000s. It is Up. The movie Up. This is a movie I've only really watched for the first time maybe last, I'd say 2 or 3 years. I remember a few years back someone made a comment about me looking like the kid from Up, Russell, because I'm always seen. I'm a bald guy. I always wear hats, but I just like wearing caps anyway. Even when I did have hair, I always like wearing caps, and I always wear like a rucksack when I'm out walking and stuff like that. So someone made a comment ages ago. I look like Russell from when I didn't have a beard, obviously, from Up, the little kid. But let me give you the story of Up if you're not aware of this movie. Basically, a little small summary of the movie. Up tells the story of Carl, a retired gentleman who is, well, it starts off the story of this, this relationship between a man and a woman, a boy and a girl, really, to start off with, and turns into a man and a woman story. It's two young kids, and I think it must be in like the 1920s or something. This movie is probably set at first, or 1930s. And a young Carl meets a young Ellie, and they're both like fans of this like high profile explorer guy who gets he's like this famed explorer, and then he goes to this mystical island, comes back and says he's found this mysterious bird that no one's ever heard of before. They all say he's a fake, and then they all banish him back to this island, this explorer. This ties into the story later on. But then a young Carl and a young Ellie watching this movie, this grand explorer, and then they meet up and they become friends, and then they later get married. And the intro to the movie is very. It starts off like very happy, but then it's a very emotional and very sad start to the story. I don't want to go too heavy in spoilers, but I don't feel like this is spoiler territory because it's so early in the movie. But we see that they get married, and it's like a little like a sort of what we say a montage scene of them growing through life and getting married and trying to have kids, and they can't have kids, and then they grow old, and then she passes on, and then Carl he's a man probably maybe in his 70s or his 80s, and he is living alone, and they have memories. They always wanted to go traveling to South America, and they never got there, and they always had that plan to do it, but it just never got around to happening. And he decides, like, one day Carl now he's in his retirement years, and he decides he wants to do something. And his home there's developers near his home who are trying to buy his home to knock it down to build skyscrapers, and he won't sell. He's angry with the world, and he wants to make a change. And it then comes about this young boy, Russell, who is a Boy Scout, and he knocks on his door, and he's trying to help him, and he's trying to get his a certain badge by helping an older retiree, if you like. And they become friends throughout this story. But basically, what happens at the start of the movie is Carl doesn't realise that Russell is in his house when he puts a bunch of balloons on top of his house, and the house flies away. And he uses balloons to make it sort of like what you call them, hot air balloons, his house. And it just such a creative move, but I just love that. It's just like there's like thousands of balloons on the roof, and Carl is just using that to get to South America because he's deciding he wants to go to where him and his wife Ellie wanted to go to, but they never got to as a couple because she passed away and they left it too long. And they go to South America, and Russell accidentally is in the house when he flies off. And like I said, this is where the friendship brews, and we see them get to South America, where the location they wanted to get to, and along the way they meet this explorer again, and this explorer isn't too nice, and there's loads of little twists and turns in the story, but it comes to the eventuality, the end, where Carl he decides, at the end of the day, it's not about like going to these places. It's about the relationships you make in life, and he tries to save Russell, and this is where the story then comes to an end, really. And I won't really spoil the ending so much, and I hope I've not spoiled too much. I've tried to keep pretty light on the spoilers, but it is just a fantastic story, a very emotional story, like I said at the beginning, and it's really a story of friendship and relationships, this story up, I think, when I'm watching it. And I was, like I said, for years, people mentioned this movie, and I never got around to watching it. And first time I watched it, I was like, wow, this is unbelievable film, such an emotional film, and I love it. The score by Michael Giacchino is fantastic. His score, it's like the same melody, the same riff throughout, but it goes from like playing this piano riff to in like a sad way, and it feels like sad and emotional, but then it gets like a big band feel throughout it as well, and it's so unreal, and such a great film to watch. So Up is my first choice for Pixar movies in the 2000s, and this was released in 2009. So now let's move on to my second choice of Pixar movies, and my second choice is Monsters, Inc., released in 2001, and I will say Up and Monsters, Inc. both had the same director, Pete Docter. That name doesn't mean not much to me. I have not heard that name before, but two great movies from this director, Pete Docter. Kudos to Pete for making two brilliant movies, Pixar movies. But Monsters, Inc., 2001, Monsters, Inc. was released. This is like kind of like feels like a new era of Pixar, because we really had the big movies, Toy Story, and now it's like they're bringing us now this big franchise, now this big new movie, Monsters, Inc. And the premise, the story of Monsters, Inc., we live in this world, I think it's called Monsterstropolis, and it's this world full of monsters where monsters live like humans, and basically the way they power this world is through energy from scurrying, and they have this factory called Monsters Incorporated, and they go through these doors to scare little kids to get the energy from the scurs. And in this world, it's like kids are toxic, and if kids get into the monster world, they could potentially ruin their existence. That's the way they think, their ideology. We then come to meet John Goodman and Billy Crystal's characters. John Goodman plays Sully in this animated movie, like this big Kerber-like monster, and then Billy Crystal plays Mike Wazowski, little green eyeball character, one big eyeball, and they are best friends, and they're top scorers at Monsters, Inc. And then the story basically unfolds that a young child, 2-year-old, she comes through one of the doors at night, and Sully takes her home, and then they come to realize that children are not really as bad as the world makes them out to be. They're not toxic, and they can actually get more energy out of these kids from making them laugh. And it's, the story unfolds. We got a few villains in there, like Randall, played by Steve Buscemi, who is great, and we see this story unfold and the connection between, especially with Sully and the child who they name Boo, and we see this really nice relationship, and it's kind of like a father-daughter relationship. It's really nice to see. And then we even see Mike Wazowski coming around to the kid at the end as well, and they want to just get the kid home, get her home safe in the end, and it's a lovely story. And Monsters, Inc., I've been thinking about this movie a lot more recently because I've been watching Monsters University. I watched it the first time at Christmas for the first time. Monsters University is the prequel movie that was released many years later to Monsters, Inc., and it's where Sully and Mike met, and they go to this Monster University. But then I was reading into it the other day, and I didn't realise that there was a sequel TV show that came out on Disney Plus last year called Monsters at Work. It's probably one I've heard about when we've done one of the Disney Plus days, but it's just one that kind of just flew past me because there's that many TV shows, that much content out there. And as a fan of the Monsters, Inc. franchise, I'm really looking forward to giving this a watch soon. I think it's 10 episodes or something of the animated show, 20, 30-minute episodes. and it's set after Monsters Inc. So I'm looking forward to watching that. I can't wait to see what happens after Monsters Inc. and just to see where they go after that. But it's a nice story. It's got a good conclusion, and I think Monsters Inc. is just a superb film to watch from Pixar. Now we move on to The Incredibles, a 2004 release. Now, this was directed by Brad Bird. What can I say about The Incredibles? Let's give a summary. Basically, it starts off the movie. You have Mr. Incredible and a bunch of other superheroes like Elastigirl, and basically there's an event that happens where all superheroes in the world get banned, and they have to go into hiding and live real lives, live their real identities, and give up being a superhero. And this is where Mr. Incredible, Elastigirl, they get married at the start of the movie, and then they have a family. We go then like 15 years later, where they've got kids, and they are living normal lives and no longer superheroes. And then Mr. Incredible gets pulled back into the superhero world, and then he brings his whole family into this world as well. And then we see this evil, villainous Syndrome, the character who is basically at the start of the movie, this evil villain is a fanboy of Mr. Incredible, and he wants to be his sidekick, and Mr. Incredible doesn't want him as a sidekick, and he sort of like tells him to go home, buddy. This is the kid's name. And then he turns villainous. He starts inventing these high-priced weapons, makes a load of money, and becomes a super villain on this super island, and he decides he wants to take revenge on Mr. Incredible, and it takes him years later, but then we see them come together to fight each other in the end, and it's just a great story, and I really enjoy The Incredibles. I will say, watching this again this morning, just to recap and refresh my brain on The Incredibles, because I've not watched it in a while, it is so much. You can see the inspiration from like the early Adam West Batman show, when it's just like from the music is very Batman-esque in like when I talk about like the old original Batman TV show and the Batman movie, it's got that feel to it by Michael Giacchino. It's just in general, it's got that feel of like an old, like not an old, like a classic comic book. It just feels like I'm watching it, and it's just like it's cheesy, it's goofy, but I really dig it. I think it's a fun movie, and Incredibles, and a lot of people like Incredibles. I know it's all these choices here are big movies that a lot of people like. It spawned a sequel, The Incredibles 2, that come out a good few years later. I'd love to see an Incredibles 3 at some point. I think it would be great. I'm sure we will, because these movies are so beloved, and I hope we do get to see an Incredibles 3 at some point. But it's just a fantastic film, and I just love the essence of them all like Batman shows, and it feels like there's a lot of inspiration from them shows put into this movie, and I just absolutely love it. So The Incredibles, visually, it looks amazing. Interesting fact as well, I was reading up on this, and it was basically they had to invent new ways of technology of displaying these human characters for Pixar, because it was like the first movie that really featured human characters, so they had to really change the technology for this movie, and Brad Bird is directed a superb film here. So The Incredibles is my third choice of best Pixar movie of the 2000s. So now I'm on to the final choice of today's headline topic, and my final choice goes to a 2003 movie called Finding Nemo. That is right, Finding Nemo. The story of Finding Nemo, you have this young fish named Nemo, his father Marlin, and basically Nemo gets taken away by a scuba diver and taken to Sydney Harbour into this dentist office, and Marlin is trying to find his son. He meets Dory, a forgetful fish who suffers short-term memory loss along the way. They become friends, and they search the entire ocean for Nemo, and they go on this grand adventure. And Marlin is a very scared father. He's scared of things because of, at the start of the movie, his wife and all these other children are taken away by an evil fish, and Nemo is the only one left. And such an emotional story, but has some really joyful, happy moments throughout this as well. Very similar to Up and Away. It really starts with that sad opening, and then it just really spurs into this grand adventure, and then you get this really, lots of joyful moments as a movie. And I love this film. I think it's probably one I watched when I initially watched it. I wasn't super keen on it because I was like big into like the Toy Story stuff, and it's very different. You know, it's a film of fish. It's set in the ocean, very different. But I've come to really enjoy it now over the years. I think, look, the music is music by Thomas Newman. The music is so relaxing and so just like it hits a certain spot in your brain where you're just like, this music is incredible. I could listen to that music, the soundtrack, and it's just an absolutely brilliant score. It's so relaxing, so chilled out, and just it's a monumental soundtrack. And I kind of forgot how good the soundtrack is. It is great, but it's a great adventure going through the scene. You see all these different these fish. You see sharks. You see Bruce the shark, who's really funny. We see the sea turtles, and like I said, it's just an adventure of a father trying to find his son and really rebuilding a bond with his son as well, and trying to let go of his son as well and give his son more chance to be who he wants to be in life. And we see that throughout the story, and we see a lovely relationship grow with Mal and the father and Dory as well. I've never seen the sequel, Finding Dory, so I don't know what the premise of the sequel is. Maybe Dory gets lost, or she's trying to find who she is. I don't know. I've never got around to watching it. I will probably. That's one I'm going to watch, Finding Dory. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Finding Nemo sequel, Finding Dory. But yeah, it's just a magical movie, and it's incredible what they can do with, just the visuals of it, all the different animals, all the different places, the locations. It is just an incredible film. I just think when these people who are putting these Pixar movies together, all these movies we've discussed in this episode, how much effort and craft goes into it. I think it's incredible. Great movie. We have as well. We have the psycho kid with the psycho theme, and there's this kid who's the dentist, his daughter, and she's gonna take Nemo, and she's every time they play the psycho music when she comes in. I love that little things like that. It's cool. I was watching it, and there's a fish when Nemo is in the dentist. He's in the fish tank and he's trying to escape, and he's hearing all these stories of his dad trying to find him. And there's a fish called Gil, and I was like, whose voice is that? And it's Willem Dafoe. And I was like, oh wow, I didn't even know Willem Dafoe was in Finding Nemo. That is awesome. He plays a fish called Gil. But great film. I feel like it's the perfect film to end this headline topic today. But they are my my 4 choices of awesome best Pixar movies of the 2000s. So we now move on to the next section of the show, and this section of the show is titled Movies for the Weekend. This is where I give you some recommendations for movies to watch this weekend. If you're looking for something to watch, think of it as you're going into the video shop of the 90s, the VHS store, the rental store if you're in America or Canada, and you're looking around for a new movie and you see a poster on the wall, or the newest movie, or the recommended movie by the owner or the manager of that shop, and they recommend these. So these are my movies for the weekend. Got 2 movies here today. First one I want to mention is one I don't believe I've ever mentioned on the channel before. This is kind of feels like a hidden gem to me. I watched it a while ago, and it's one I got it this week with a bunch of pickups with Paulie, and I was so pleased to pick it up. It was sealed, and it was like $5 for £1 in the DVDs at the charity shop. And the film is Yogi Bear, starring Dan Aykroyd and Justin Timberlake. Dan Aykroyd of Ghostbusters plays Yogi Bear, and Justin Timberlake plays his friend Boo Boo. And Yogi Bear is obviously based on the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and it is a live action. The birds are animated, but it's a live action. There's like human characters in there as well. It feels like this one. I think it was like, what was it? Early 2012. It says here. This is one, when it come out, I feel like I probably denounced it and said it was garbage, and I can't even remember whether I watched it when it come out. I only watched it recently in like last year or two. But I had a lot of fun watching it. I think it's a great family movie. It's just silly. It doesn't take itself seriously. Yogi is just, I think a lot of people might be put off by like the fact Justin Timberlake is voicing one of the characters in it. Don't let that like put you off if you're not like into like music, or you don't like music stars featuring in movies. look, both the voices in this are superb, and they sound very much like the original Yogi Bear TV show. Yogi Bear, they live in Yellowstone Park. He likes his food. He's stealing food from picnickers, and it's just really funny. It's a really funny movie. But Yogi Bear is one well worth checking out. If you can get a copy of this or watch it on streaming, check it out. Yogi Bear. Do not sleep on this movie. It is a fantastic film. Another one I want to discuss on movies for the weekend this weekend. The Winter Olympics are coming up now. If you're into sports, I think it's in the next month or two in Beijing. I will say that there was a news report I seen this week, and this is where it brought up this movie, that the Jamaicans are making a return to the Winter Olympics for the first time in like so many years. It might even be since this movie, since this true story, but Cool Runnings, it just brought up, it's shown clips from the movie, and I was like, oh, I've got to watch that again. Cool Runnings is such a great movie. Just a standout for me growing up. I love this movie, Walt Disney movie. I love it. It's the story of this team of runners who fail at running. They decide to take on bobsleighing to get to the Winter Olympics, and they go on this great story and it's a true story. It's based on true events of the Jamaican bobsleigh team, and you just see them. It's basically a story of them earning respect, and it's a comedy. It's a comedy film, but it's just such a grand film, an epic film as well. Well worth checking out. You don't have to be into sports. It's just a fun movie for the whole family. Cool Runnings. It's got John Candy in there as well. Well worth checking out if you're looking for something to watch this weekend. But now we move on to the next part of the show, and it is not movies of the weekend, Amazon Top 10. And this is the part of the show where I give you the Amazon Top 10 for movies, and it'll be DVD, 4K, Blu-ray releases, physical releases of movies this week. So, at number 10, we have the Blu-ray of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I've still not watched that movie. At number 9, we have the Blu-ray of Ghostbusters Afterlife that is coming out. I think it's out now. I think it was out on the 25th. Ghostbusters Afterlife is at number 8 as well, the DVD version. At number 7, we have Disney's Encanto. I've heard a lot of people mentioning this movie more recently. Listen to movie podcast Encanto. Someone else mentioned this to me, said it's a really well worth checking out. So I'm going to check it out ASAP. That's at number 7, DVD. The Dune DVD release is at number 6. Venom DVD, Let There Be Carnage, is number 5. We have Dune 4K at number 4. Dune Blu-ray at number 3. Still here. When is this movie gonna? This movie's never gonna die. The Blu-ray of No Time to Die, the James Bond movie, is at number 2, and the DVD of that movie is at number 1. That film is still. I just feel like that's going to be cemented there for such a long time, that movie. People love it. It's a great film. Well worth checking out. But that is the Amazon Top 10 for physical releases, movies this week. Now let's move on to the next part of the show. Now, this part of the show, next up, is what's been on the screen. What's been on the screen this past week? Right. I finally got round to watching a movie. I've got it here. That was on, I think I did a video before Christmas or maybe after Christmas of movies, classic movies I never got around to watching. And I'm pretty sure this was on the list because I think Nick from Nick's Movie Talk, he was gobsmacked when I mentioned E.T. I'm sure he said, he was like, wow, you've never watched E.T. But E.T., the extraterrestrial, watched it for the first time. Never watched it growing up. I had no memories of this movie. Steven Spielberg directs. It's a story of a young alien who gets lost on Earth, and these young kids take him as a friend and, become friends with him. We see this story unfold with this E.T. character and these young children, and then it's a story of him trying to get to home and trying to find his family again. And what can I say? Look, I think this is a movie where you need to have nostalgia for this. I think if you watched this growing up or you watched it when it was released, I can see why a lot of people like it because it's got loads of really joyful moments. So I can see the nostalgia hits. I see this in certain films. I watch like Masters of the Universe. I watched it growing up, And I mentioned it to some people and they're like, that's a garbage movie. But I'm like, for me, it's a perfect film. I love it. I just have lots of happy memories. And I think it's one of them films, E.T. I can imagine it's got a lot of nostalgia attached for people. For me, though, it just didn't click. It wasn't a movie I thought was a horrible movie. I thought there was some good parts. I thought when it got to like the final third of the movie, I think near the end it was a bit better. It got a bit more ramped up a bit more. But there was certainly parts I felt was really slow. I felt like the beginning of the movie was very slow with E.T.'s just in the house eating food and stuff like that. I'm like, this is just, there's nothing going on here. It felt like, to me, I had the similar feeling when I watched for the first time Flight of the Navigator. And again, a lot of people have nostalgia for that movie, and I hear a lot of people saying such good things about that movie. But I watched that and I was just like, it's a movie that just didn't click with me. And it was just, I was watching it and it wasn't like I disliked it, but it just wasn't a connection there. And I felt like I'm just watching something and it's just going past me. And it's just not it's not, just something's just not connecting. There's no connection there with me watching the screen. And that's what I felt with E.T. I think there wasn't a connection. It just wasn't. And I like sci-fi. I love Steven Spielberg. It just didn't work with me. I think a few little things as well, like the music. John Williams is one of my favourite composers, but I felt throughout the movie, the score is great. The music, like the main theme, is great, but it felt like it was overused, the music, way too many times. And by the end of it, I was like, I'm sick of hearing this E.T. song, this E.T. theme song. And they're little gripes again with me with this movie. When he sort of like, you think he's at a later point in the story, spoilers for E.T., you think he's dead, and then he comes back alive when he's gets the call from his parents, and I just find it a bit bizarre, and like the kid's on his deathbed, and I thought, this is meant to be a family movie, and it's kind of went a bit dark for a few moments. It wasn't for me. But I'm glad I watched it, because people have said for me, you've got to watch this movie, AP. Check it out. I'm glad I watched it now, and I've got an opinion of the movie. I can see why people like it, like I said, because I imagine it holds a lot of great memories for a lot of people out there. For me, it's just not a movie for me. You'd say there's hits and misses out there. You're not going to like every single movie, and this is just a movie. It just didn't work for me. But hey ho, there's more classic movies out there. I'm going to try. But let me know your thoughts on E.T. anyway. What do you think of this movie? What do you think of the plot in general? And especially in parts where E.T.'s on his deathbed and stuff like that. What did you think of them moments of the movie? Now, I want to just talk briefly about another thing I watched this week. I watched the Peacemaker show, John Cena's Peacemaker show. I'm not going to go into spoilers of the show, but what I will say, I'm 4 episodes in. I know there's a new episode out this week. It's a great show. I like the Suicide Squad movie where John Cena featured in this movie and this Peacemaker character made his debut. But that movie, it was an okay movie. I enjoyed that movie. There was parts of it I didn't like, but I thought in general it was a decent movie. But to see, I was a bit like skeptical about this show coming up. Like, will it work, this Peacemaker character? Look, if you've not watched it, check it out. It's kind of, I would explain it to people. I would say it reminds me a lot of the Kick-Ass movies. It's got that same flavour of James Gunn is the director for a couple of episodes. He writes the show as well, but it's got that Kick-Ass feel to it. It's like a rated R feel as well. Very action, very adult humour. I wouldn't really recommend this one to kids to watching. I think it's more aimed at adults, this sort of superhero show. But it's kind of like Kick-Ass meets Arrow. That's the way I would explain it. Or Kick-Ass meets the Flash TV show. It's got that flavour to it. I think it's a really good show. I think John Cena is really finding his feet as an actor, and this is really showing his talents that he can really, hold his own as the main star of a TV show, and he's going to go on to, be the next Rock, isn't he? He's going to be great, John Cena, I think. But yeah, I love the show. I like the story that is unfolding with these butterfly characters, and the plot about the butterflies. Again, I won't spoil too much, but it's a great story. I think the cast is great. There's some great additions to the cast as well that weren't in the movie, and I can't wait to see. I don't know how many episodes. I think it's like 6 or 7 episodes. I can't wait to see how this unfolds and the end of the story happens. And hopefully we get to see more of these Peacemaker shows, and maybe a few more spin-offs of the other characters in there, like Bloodsport from Idris Elba. I'd love to see a show with him, and I think it'd be great to see. But great show. I think it's cool that we're getting more options and just these like weird characters coming out the DCEU. The Peacemaker character I'd never heard of before, but I'm really happy to see him on screen, and I think it's a great show, well worth checking out, the Peacemaker show. But anyway, that is the end of today's show. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a like and check out the rest of the Movie Cheer podcast content, movie-related content on the YouTube channel, or subscribe to the podcast and check out the other podcasts on the network, the Movie Cheer network, we'll call it. It's been a great show though, where I had a great time discussing Pixar movies. As I said, big fan of Pixar, absolutely love them, and all these movies. There was other movies like Cars, could have been another one. I don't mind Cars, I think it's a decent movie. But these, like Ratatouille as well. But these are my favourites, my top 4 in Pixar movies, and it'd be great to hear your thoughts. What are your top 4 Pixar movies of the 2000s era of movies, of Pixar films? Let me know all your choices. What did you think of my picks today? What did you think of the movies we discussed today? Give me all your thoughts, ladies and gents. It's been a great show. I really enjoyed it. If you're interested, please do leave a review if you are listening to this on one of your podcast networks. And if you're listening to this and watching this on YouTube, please do leave a comment with all your thoughts on today's topic. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer, ladies and gents. And as always, I will see you next time.